If you remember a few years ago, the Georgia Bulldogs had a no-name defense. I believe that was in 2019. A lot of really, really good players, but at the time, nobody thought anyone on that defense was an actual star. 2020, really good defense. 21, one of the best in college football history. We saw what the Bulldogs did last year. Now, no Jalen Carter next year, no Keely Ringo. It kind of has a feel that this 2023 defense also has a no-name defense to it. Now, if you're watching this video, you're a big Georgia fan, you follow recruiting, you know who all of these guys are. But I'm sitting here thinking, does the average Michigan, USC, Texas, Florida State fan know who guys like Jamon Dumas-Johnson are, Nazir Stackhouse, Smal Munda, Javon Bullard? I mean, they should, but I don't think the average college football fan could probably name 2-3 players on Georgia's defense heading into next season, even though they should. Now, a lot of people, I think, have heard of Malachi Starks, a guy who was a former 5-star who had a really nice freshman season. They may have heard of Jamon Dumas-Johnson and Smal Munda, the two leading tacklers from Georgia's defense last year. Javon Bullard is a superstar. He was the MVP of the Peach Bowl, MVP of the national championship game, big games against Tennessee, big sack late against Kentucky. He is an absolute playmaker, but he's not a guy people know much about. They may have heard of him. They don't know anything about him. And I think that this defense, if we're talking about future first-round picks, there are a few. I think Smal Munda could be a first-round pick at some point. Malachi Starks, Mykel Williams, these guys have the potential to be first-round picks. A lot of the freshmen do too. Bear Alexander, Jalen Walker, Dalen Everett. These guys can play, but I think, does the average Georgia fan, can the average Georgia fan name 4-5 starters on this defense? Maybe not. Kamari Laster had a really, really good season. Is he someone that people across college football know about? Absolutely not. Going into last year, people knew who Jalen Carter was. People knew who Keely Ringo was. Season before that, people knew who Jordan Davis was. They knew who Nakobe Dean was. But going into this year, there's not one guy who is leading this defense. It is a collective group, and it's a group that is very talented, and there are a lot of future NFL guys on this defense. But I do think you get a sense of the no-name defense that we saw, I believe it was in 2019, because DeAndre Baker played in 18. He was a Thorpe Award winner, so he was a big name. But this year, everyone who plays on Georgia's defense is very good. They're really, really good players. And that kind of makes it a little difficult to stand out because it's not one person making play after play after play, and everyone in college football is like, oh, that's that guy from Georgia, right? Smal Munda made 76 total tackles. Jamon Dumas-Johnson, 70. Malachi Starks, 68. Javon Bullard, 46. So it's not like these guys are absolutely lighting up the stat sheet. They're doing their job. And it's hard to really understand or get to know these defenders when, as a defense, they're forcing 3 and outs all the time. They're not on the field as much, right? They're not accumulating those stats because, again, it's just hard to get first downs on these guys. And you have Malachi Starks who, forced some turnovers. Javon Bullard absolutely did. But is there a Jalen Carter or Keely Ringo that everyone knows about heading into this season? I don't think so. People should know about Smal Munda. People should know about Mykel Williams and Malachi Starks. Nazir Stackhouse is a guy who consistently does his job. He might be someone who finally breaks out and becomes a national name in the sport. Right now, most people that aren't Georgia fans don't know who Nazir Stackhouse is. They may have heard his name on a broadcast when, the game's on in the background, but they don't know his story. They don't know, what he brings to the table. And that's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. And when a lot of these first stringers are out of the game come the third, fourth quarter, and you've got all these new players in, I guess it can be easy for the Oklahoma fan, the Clemson fan, to the Notre Dame fan to kind of forget about these guys who were really, really good. So I think you have a little bit of this on offense too, outside of Brock Bowers, who everyone knows about. There just aren't those big names heading into next year. And again, if you're a Georgia fan, you do know these guys. I'm not, calling out Georgia fans for not knowing who these players are because y'all watch the games, y'all watch these videos, you know who just about everyone on the team is. But Do people know across the country who Jamon Dumas Johnson is? Do they know how good he and Small London are or could be together? Do they know, again, about just, Zion Logue, right? Warren Brinson, Tyrion Ingram's Dawkins. These are no-name guys across college football and probably still across the SEC, but they're good players who have contributed, who are going to have, very productive seasons again in 2023. So you talk about the no-name defense that Dan Lanning had. I don't know who gave Georgia's defense that title, but I think you can attribute that to this year's team. A lot of really, really good players, 100%, really, really good players, but there's no superstar right now. I think Malachi Starks is a superstar, probably a top 10 pick in the NFL one day. I think Michael Williams could also be a top 10 pick one day. I think he's a superstar. But again, you ask an Oregon fan, even an A&M fan, people in the SEC have heard of these guys, but they don't know these guys. There's a difference between hearing someone's name and knowing what type of player they are. And I don't think that a lot of college football fans, the average college football fan, knows anything about Georgia's defense. You're going to hear all offseason, well, just like last year, they lost Jordan Davis, they lost Devonta Wyatt, Trayvon Walker, Nakobe Dean, Quay Walker, Channing Tindall, on and on and on. They came back and they were the best defense in college football, won a national championship. You're going to hear the same thing. Well, they don't have Keely Ringo coming back. They don't have Jalen Carter coming back. They don't have Chris Smith coming back, Chris Smith could be a college football Hall of Famer. First team All-American, big play after big play, was the leader of two defenses that won national championships. Chris Smith still might be one of the more underrated players in Georgia football history, right? He was a superstar. He's going to get drafted, but he's not there anymore. You're going to hear there are going to be analysts out there. There are going to be those hot takes where Georgia's going to take a big step back defensively, but they lost more last year after that 21 team than they did this year. So there are lots of players on this team. Everyone should know about Javon Bullard, an absolute playmaker who rose to this team. But last year was his breakout year. And if you didn't pay attention, and let's say you knew Georgia was going to beat TCU, right? The average college football fan who didn't watch the national championship, you missed those two interceptions. You missed the forced fumble that he had, or he fell on. I think Chris Smith may have forced it. Javon Bullard fell on it. That could be opposite there, but he was part of 3 turnovers in the national championship game. The hit against Marvin Harrison Jr., the clean hit, absolutely changed the game. He's a guy that every college football fan should know about because he was so productive and so good down the stretch in those final games, but I don't think that's the case. Does the Ohio State fan knows all about Javon Bullard. They curse him in their sleep every night, but the average, again, Wisconsin fan probably can't name anyone on Georgia's defense returning, right? And that's because it's such a collective group. Everyone makes plays when the opportunity is there for them to. Kamari Laster could be one of the best cornerbacks in college football next season. And if you watched him play, you understand that. But a lot of people didn't watch Georgia football like you did, the person watching this video. Y'all know who these players are, and you know how good Georgia's defense should probably be next year. But from a national perspective, I don't think the average college football fan could name you 2 starters or even 2 players on Georgia's defense going into next season. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is, and they're going to surprise a lot of people because I don't think people realize how good Georgia is going to be on defense once again next year. And you've got a lot of guys who, again, consistently do their job. They may not light up the stat sheet, but that's a good thing. Marlo Herrera had like 120 tackles. Danny Verdun Wheeler back in the day had 100 plus tackles, I think. It's because they were on the field a lot and they were giving up a lot of plays, and they had to make a lot of tackles because teams were driving down the field on them consistently. With this unit, seen the last couple of years, if you get a first down against Georgia's defense, you did a good job. You did a really good job. So it's hard for them to make spectacular play after play when sometimes, Small London doesn't make a tackle because it's 3 and out and he didn't get an opportunity to. Same with Jamon Dumas Johnson and, Nazir Stackhouse. All these guys who are really good players are not getting the credit I think they deserve. Maybe closer to the season, these guys will start getting more recognition. But right now, this feels a lot like that 2019 defense. A lot of really good players, no stars that other people think, right? There are multiple superstars on this Georgia defense. And if you're watching this video, you probably agree with me because you know this team and know these players, right? You watch this team consistently. But as far as a national perspective goes, I don't think these guys are household names in college football yet. They should be, not yet. Kennesaw State, 2 wins away, I think, from making the NCAA tournament, winning the Atlantic Sun, A-Sun, whatever it's called. But yeah, go Owls. Just had to throw that in there real quick. Yeah, what do you think? Is this another no-name defense, or are these guys, bigger names across college football right now than I guess I think? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching this video. Appreciate it. Really do. We love our YouTube audience. Stick around for the next one coming up right now, and I'll see you over on Dog Post.